American Fugitive by Xingo Zhang. Chapter 6: The Banquet. The next evening, Ren-Yee took a taxi to Junshang Restaurant on Wuchang Europe Street. Ren-Yee would certainly have skipped the banquet if it were an ordinary one. But the banquet invitation had been sent by Song Huimin and her husband Lu Wenhui, and it was supposed to be an occasion for building important business relations for the upcoming new company. Ren-Yee had to participate as scheduled. There were lots of cars on the Europe Street. The sidewalks bustled with people. Junshang Restaurant had many brightly lit floors. As soon as Ren-Yee walked into the lobby, he was greeted by beautiful young girls lining up like two walls. The lobby was big and was filled with people. Ren-Yee saw some people stood waiting and some walked by briskly. Ren-Yee asked the receptionist about the private room booked by Song Huimin. The young girl immediately went to the service desk to get the room number. She came back and directed Ren-Yee to take an elevator. It must have been a holiday, because many people were waiting for elevators. Men and women, young and old, talked and laughed while they waited. An elevator door opened. Ren-Yee entered the elevator with others. He felt uneasy standing in a crowded elevator. However, when did I ever see such a lively and happy Chinese crowd in an elevator in the U.S.? Ren-Yee felt relaxed. A warm feeling crept up inside him. When Ren-Yee walked into the private banquet room, Lu Wenhui, Song Huimin and 3 other couples were already at the table. Ren-Yee sat next to Lu. Lu was Huimin's husband and director of Wuhan's Municipal Public Security Bureau. He was over 50, with a crew cut and a rectangular face. Lu was from the countryside, and joined the army after high school. After many years in the army, he quitted the army and joined Wuhan's Public Security Bureau. A minute later, a man in a suit and a woman in police uniform entered the room. Lu Wenhui smiled and said, "You came so late, and made Dr. Ho wait for a long time. That's not nice, is it?" The man in the suit immediately said, "Sorry. Please forgive us." A man in a police uniform sitting close to the window said, "No, we can't let you off so easily. Drink 3 cups of liquor as punishment." The woman in uniform said, "I am your subordinate. But my husband isn't." "Aren't you reaching too far?" Everyone laughed. The couple sat down next to Ren-Yee. 2 waitresses started to serve liquor and food. Lu said, "Our distinguished guest today is Ren-Yee. Ren-Yee has a PhD from America." Song Huimin added, "He's also a graduate from Huanggang High School." Huanggang High School was a well-known prestigious school in Hubei province. Ren-Yee moved to the United States, where he lived for 20 years. He wanted to come back and start a company, contributing to the fatherland. Huimin has been very supportive. She talked to me about it many times. A woman said, "She talked to you many times, and you didn't do anything?" Everyone laughed. Lu smiled and said, "Don't stir conflict in my marriage. I warn you." Then Lu introduced the man next to Huimin. "This is Xiao Zichang, the director of Wuchang Branch Bureau of Public Security. Next to him is the fast talker, his wife, Luo Yanfang. She works at Wuhan Municipal Cultural Affairs Bureau. Next is Jing Chunxiang, vice president of Wuchang Branch of Hankow Bank, and his wife Xing Wening. Over there is Captain Wang of the Special Police Detachment, and his wife Wu Huang." Lu also introduced the lady who just came in. Zhang Yuzhen, deputy director of Wuchang Branch Bureau, our heroine, and also a March 8th red flag bearer. The honor of being a March 8th red flag bearer was awarded by the Chinese government to women with outstanding achievements in their fields. This was done on March 8th, International Women's Day. Zhang Yuzhen said with modesty, "That was many years ago, and you are still talking about it. Because you made us proud." With the exception of Lu Wenhui, all the participants were under 50. Xiao Zichang was a handsome man with light skin. His wife Luo Yanfang was attractive with beautiful eyes. It was obvious that 2 had grown up in privileged families in big cities. They were a golden couple who sparkled wherever they went. Yanfang asked Ren-Yee, "Is your wife back?" "She is not. What does she do in the United States? She is a professor at a university, Yanfang said. Director Lu, isn't your daughter a college student in Canada? Lu turned to Ren-Yee. Yeah. It would be great if she could enter a PhD program at your wife's university, Huimin said. That university is quite competitive. Lu said, Of course. That was a goal for her to strive for. Ren-Yee said, I can talk to Jin Yong-Shee. She can take a look. Xing Weining said, We plan to send our son to study abroad in the future. Fearing the banquet was entering into a discussion of studying abroad, Lu said quickly, Let's welcome Ho Ren-Yee today. Huimin raised her glass toward Ren-Yee. Yes, old Lu, and I would like to give you the first toast. Xing Chunxiang also raised his glass. Let's have to toast. In Ji Nanshan's living room, Jan Han and Jan Yo sat on a couch. It was an ordinary apartment with ordinary decoration. Ji, a heavy man, sat on a chair. He was over 70 years old. Around 1 year after the September 13th incident, Ji became a member of the government's investigation team on Lin Biao anti-party clique. Joint Fleets tapes? Ji whispered. Jan Han asked. Yes. Remember? Ji said in a low voice. What do you want that thing for? Just want to hear what they talked about back then. Jan Han and Janyo had decided not to tell Ji about the voice recording of the cockpit. Ji's breathing was a little uneven as he spoke. The case was over. The resolution from the party central committee had made it clear. The Joint Fleet. Ji started coughing. Jan Han began to wonder whether Ji had heart disease or something. Ji picked up a small box from the coffee table and used an inhaler to help his breathing. Ji said, The Joint Fleet had 3 plans to assassinate Chairman Mao. There was evidence for that. Jan Han said, We just want to know the location of the Joint Fleet's evidences. Ji stretched out his right arm and shook his fat hand in front of the 2 Lins. You won't be able to overturn Lin Biao's case. After a period of silence, Jan Han said calmly, So many years have passed. Those tapes should be made public to family members at least, right? Ji said nothing. Janyo said, U.S. President Nixon's audio tapes are available to the public now. Ji laughed and said, China is not the United States. State secrets are still state secrets. Janyo didn't know what to say in reply. He looked at Jan Han. Jan Han tried to think quickly. Lin Jan Han said, Political Commissar Ji, do you know Wang Bingzhang? Ji Nanshan immediately said, Is he still alive? He died in 2005. Ji sighed. He lived a long life. He was blessed. Wang Bingzhang was a lieutenant general. After he was labeled an accomplice to Lin Biao's clique, Wang was demoted to the rank of division commander. Janyo said, China's intercontinental missiles and satellites were all developed under Wang's leadership. He was jailed for 10 years, even though he didn't commit any crime. Ji smiled. General Wang was very lucky. Many people died in prison within 5 or 6 years. He waved his hand again. The situation is much better now than it was in the past. Jan Han asked, Were there other people who investigated Xing Dechuan? Yes, there were. But they were arrested later. You were not arrested? I was not. Ji turned his eyes to the balcony. The special investigation team went through several leadership changes. Each change of leadership resulted in a bunch of people being locked up. I joined under the last leadership. Jan Han said, What a meat grinder! Ji nodded. Rounding up Lin Biao's buddies was grossly expanded into an ugly purge. Ji waved his hand with a bitter smile. At Junshang restaurant, people at Huimin's banquet started feeling more intimate with each other. Lu knew that Xiao Zichang and his wife had just returned from Beijing a few days ago. He asked Xiao, When did you come back? Last Wednesday. Where did you go? Zheng Chunxiang asked. Beijing. Xiao pointed a finger at Yanfang and said, We went to her uncle's birthday party. Lu asked, How many people showed up at the party? Xiao asked Yanfang. How many? I heard it was over 200, Yanfang said. Huimin blurted out in surprise. That many people? Lu smiled. Was the entire Politburo Standing Committee present? Yanfang said. There were a lot. Yanfang seemed to be deliberately vague. Wu Hong asked, Who is your uncle? How did he draw so much attention? He was a deputy premier of the State Council more than a decade ago. Which one? Yanfang hesitated. His name was not often on newspapers. Lu said to Wu Hong. You only need to know that he is a member of the 48 to 21 club. What is the 48 to 21 club? Xiao replied. In 1948. The central government sent 21 youths who were descendants of high-ranking officials and martyrs to study in the Soviet Union, including 2 sons of Yi Ting, a daughter of Yi Jianying. Ren-Yee said, and Lin Hanxiang. How do you know? Yanfang was surprised. Couldn't he also have such a relative? Lu said jokingly. Yanfang wanted to justify her question, but didn't know what to say. Everyone laughed. Ren-Yee said, I read it online. Xiao said, You obviously know a lot about Lin Hanxiang. Ren-Yee said, He is Lin Weiying's son and Lin Biao's nephew. He is also a Hubei fellow. Wang Xinjiang was a man of few words. He smiled and said to Ren-Yee, Come on. Let's have a toast to a Hubei fellow. Lu smiled. In this room, I'm the only one who is a half Hubei fellow. Let's have a toast to all Hubei fellows in this room. The conversation in Mr. Ji's living room continued. Ji closed his eyes and lowered his head. His 2 hands pressed against his forehead. Then he gently rubbed his thumbs on his temples. Ji seemed like he was put in a tough spot. Janhan said calmly, We just want to know where the tapes are. If this were discovered, it would not be that simple. I know. Only Janyo and I know about this. No one else will know in the future. Ji coughed as he nodded. Afraid of Ji having another asthma attack, Janhan said, Political Commissar Ji, since this is the first time Janyo and I are meeting you, we brought you a small gift. He gave Ji an envelope containing a stack of 100 yuan bills. Ji hesitated. Then he smiled and said, I don't usually accept gifts. But you came to see me so enthusiastically that I have to make an exception. He put the envelope in his pants pocket. Then Ji coughed twice and cleared his throat. I have to think about this. Let's keep in touch. Janhan and Janyo stood up. Lin Janhan gave Ji a business card and said, Sorry to disturb you for so long. Ji stood up. It's all right. Getting in touch with more people is a good thing. There are lots of strange mysteries in Lin Biao's case. I hope they can be cleared up in the future. Janhan immediately noticed the change in Ji's attitude. The power of a gift cannot be underestimated, he thought. Janhan and Janyo walked out of the apartment building where Ji Nanshan lived. Janyo said. After receiving the money, his tone changed. Janhan said, They are all like that. At 9 o'clock, Xing Weiying looked at his watch and said, We have to leave. Lu said to Ren-Yee, Maybe we will call it for today. Forgive us for such a simple banquet. Next time, we will enjoy more drinks. Thank you for your warm hospitality. You're welcome. Years ago, I played tennis quite often. I have been so busy in recent years. Just be a little easy on me on the tennis court in future. Yanfang turned to Ren-Yee. I like tennis very much. I'm just not very good. Would you be interested in teaching an awkward student like me? Ren-Yee looked at her for a moment, not sure whether complimenting Yanfang was a good idea. He said, For a woman as pretty as you, I wouldn't be a man if I said I was not interested. Everyone around the table burst into laughter. Yanfang buried her face in her husband's shoulder while laughing. Lu said to Xiao, You hear that? Looks like you need to be on guard against Ren-Yee. Xiao Zichang smiled. Like the old saying goes, knowing a person, knowing his face, doesn't mean you know his heart. 10 minutes later, Ren-Yee stepped out of Junshang restaurant. The meeting between Janhan, Janyo and Ji Nanshan was never far from his mind, but he could not call Jan Han until the banquet was over. He called a taxi and rushed to his apartment. After entering the apartment, he closed the door and called Jan Han. Ren-Yee asked, "How did it go, your talk with Ji Nanshan?" Jan Han said calmly, "We didn't find him. I heard that he has left Wuhan." "Really?" Ren-Yee couldn't believe his ears. "Yes. We are stuck." "Where did he go?" "Don't know." Ren-Yee paused, sensing something was wrong. He said, "What's the next step?" "We will see," Jan Han said without a sign of urgency. "All right then. Talk to you later. Bye." "Goodbye." Ren-Yee noticed the indifference in Jan Han's tone. Quite strange, he thought. But he didn't give it too much thought. Song Huimin told Ren-Yee a week ago about 2 government projects soliciting for bids. She gave him 2 requests for proposal, RFP, documents yesterday. Ren-Yee needed to write proposals for their new company. After reading the first RFP document, he went to bed and fell asleep. The next morning, on one of the main boulevards in Wuhan, pedestrians filled the wide sidewalk. Ji Nanshan was among the pedestrians. When he came upon a 6-story shopping center, he walked in. Inside the lobby on the first floor, Ji opened a Wi-Fi calling app on his cell phone and dialed Jan Han's phone number. Ji used the anonymous calling mode, so that he could not easily be identified if the call were traced later on by the government. In his office, Jan Han picked up the call on his cell phone. The conversation was short. In the end, Jan Han said, "Okay. See you tonight," and hung up. Ren-Yee did a lot of research for the proposal he was going to write. He needed to write a proposal as soon as possible. In the evening, Yanfang called. The two chatted for a while, and agreed to play tennis the next day. After hanging up, Ren-Yee started writing the proposal on his computer. At night, Jan Han went to Ji's apartment alone. Ji opened the door. The living room was dark. There was only faint light coming from the hallway. Ji led Jan Han directly to a bedroom, and closed the door after Jan Han. The two whispered in the bedroom.